Hello, everybody. Welcome to the end of the year stream. What's going on? Uh, very interesting year, for sure, with content, with everything. Really, every year is interesting, but 2022 was definitely one that was interesting. We had a lot of content for both Star Wars, Marvel, and other miscellaneous stuff that we don't cover on the channel. But yeah, before we get into, I guess, um the past year and look ahead to 2023, I kind of want to go over some show notes, right? So the new year is going to look a little different. Um, Alex hasn't gotten back to me in 3 or so weeks. So I don't want to just do this by myself. That was never my intention when about 2 years ago I just found random people, Star Wars TikTokers to have conversations with. Um, and then it kind of resulted in this whole channel happening. And then I would say we've had this channel itself for about a year or so now. And we've been doing this podcast since a couple weeks before Bad Batch, like originally came out in 21. So we've been doing this now for a year plus. And we've done a podcast at least every month. Um, but yeah, moving forward, I can't answer because I don't know what Alex's situation is because he hasn't gotten back to me. So moving forward, we will be having a co-host, an addition. His name's Jonah Davis. Go check it out go check him out on TikTok. I asked him a couple of days ago because like I had no one else to do it with, and it's never been my intention since I've started this to do this on my own because that's not fun to me. The whole point of it was to have conversation, and I would feel yeah, okay, I was just checking my audio, sorry. Um I, I always with this channel wanted to have conversations with people, and it's gonna stay that way. I don't think you can do this show with nobody. And yeah, I mean I really hope that Alex joins. Um I don't know what's going on. That's really I mean, all I can kind of say with that. But moving forward, it's gonna look a little different, maybe. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have 3 people at some point. That would be great. That the more the merrier. Uh, so yeah, that's what we're looking at here. But anyways, yeah. So 2022, interesting year for sure with content. We had um we had the Book of Boba Fett to start the year. We had Multiverse of Madness, then Moon Knight, then Miss Marvel. We had Thor: Love and Thunder. We had the Batman mixed into that. So I could guess we could generally talk about the year that was in content, 2022, and overall it was a pretty. I mean, it wasn't a fantastic year, I don't think, for Marvel. Um, I think there was a stretch in the middle to late portion of the year for them where specifically the middle of the year with Love and Thunder, Miss Marvel, and She-Hulk where um nothing hit. I think they had a very um poor stretch. Poor stretch there for sure. I think those were bad projects, and you'll see in my list. I think it reflects that. The beginning of the year, I think, was strong. I think it kind of these projects obviously weren't good as No Way Home, but Multiverse of Madness and Moon Knight were very effective. I think they were very good. And then the middle of the year was just not good. Not good enough. Not good enough. We kind of ran into some problems, and I still think we have a Disney Plus problem with Marvel. I still think it's been a year and a half now. It's been a phase, and we still haven't figured that out. Um, End of the year, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was really strong, right? Black Panther: Wakanda Forever kind of reminded you of the old Phase 3 Marvel, right? Kind of got you back to that feeling. Um, and I think there were two really positive signs from Marvel. Maybe not like an overhaul that's like, I'm all in on Marvel now. Um, because I think Marvel has definitely had a problem post Endgame of attracting that same level of hype. And that's obvious, right? You just ended a saga and you're trying to introduce these new characters. You tried to figure out a streaming platform. You're a company that's pretty much crafted a very effective formula. And now you got to craft a new formula for television and you're struggling. And it's not like the old days when they only had to churn out 1 to 3 films a year. They're churning out three uh, shows a year, right? So it becomes very much more apparent, especially when they're trying to tap into different genres. So they haven't figured that out yet, but I think that the specials, right? We had the Halloween special with Werewolf by Night, and we had the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Now, I don't think those are like very, massively consequential projects to the MCU. Uh, but I do adamantly think that moving forward, that those projects uh could be useful because instead of doing shows about like introducing these certain characters, you can absolutely do a type of deal where you do a special presentation about Silver Surfer, you do a special presentation about Nova, or just characters that don't need shows. Moon Knight, you could have easily done a special presentation for like an hour story about these characters that introduces them into the MCU without you watching a 6-week show where you feel like there's a lot of you know bad pacing, a lot of additional content. The story just feels bland. Um, because if we're being honest, with the show, you have to film much more content, right? It's six at the very least. They've done at least 6 40-minute episodes, right? And it's a lot. It is a lot. It's more than a movie, right? It's basically a trilogy of films within a show. So that's been a struggle for them. But I think moving forward, and I think Feige understands this, that they're going to look at this, and I think they're going to move towards presentations with certain projects moving forward. Now, I'm not saying like Daredevil, Born Again, or um, Loki season 2, monumental projects. I think are going to stay as shows because they work as shows, but I think they need to reevaluate what is working as a show and what isn't working as a show. And I think once they do that, they can maybe work in these presentations that just introduce these characters and because what we really value is their interactions. What really gets you excited about a comic film is the prospect of these characters interacting with other characters, right? Is our heroes interacting with different types of heroes, different types of villains, these big crossover type events. That's the cool stuff, right? That's the really dope stuff that you look for. These origin stories can be boring sometimes, incredibly dull, incredibly divisive. In the case of She-Hulk, I would argue, incredibly niche, and sometimes they need to be niche. Like Miss Marvel, I think, is a good example of a show that was trying to connect with a smaller general audience. But when you're niche, it's harder for the audience to resonate. And then it's also like you gotta stay close to the source material. There's people like that. It's hard to please. You can't please everybody. Uh, but I think you need to find a way to please the majority of people, right? I think that's the main goal here. We want a dope story that still pleases the majority of people. So Marvel is still figuring it out, and we'll get into 2023 because it's a mixed bag for sure. Um, we don't even know the 2023 slate fully yet. So Marvel is definitely going to be very interested in how they play the next year. I mean, we're going to be in the thick of Phase 5 by the end of the year. Um, this phase will last from February of 23 to November of 24 when Blade comes out. So it will be less. Yes, it'll be Or yeah, it would just be slightly less than Phase 4, about a month or so less than Phase 4, and then Phase 6 will be very, very quick. So Phase 5 is big. Phase 5 is obviously a massive phase, and we'll be in the thick of it by the end of 2023. So I'm really curious, especially with some of these projects. That are like, oh, I don't know. Now a little bit into the year in review about Star Wars. Man, so we had the Book of Boba Fett that came out at the latter half of 21. It actually came out a year ago yesterday. So 366 days ago, we watched the premiere of Book of Boba. I mean, those first four episodes are okay. There's some aspects that you really like. Like I like episode 2, the train heist, and then hell, I couldn't even tell you what happened in the other three. Not great, I would say. Pretty poor production value. Um, just does it add a lot to Boba's? Was it necessary? But my big thing with the book, was it necessary? Well, technically, is any show necessary? Right? They're all made to make profit. But if they're gonna go the direction of a universe, an interconnected Filoni verse, Mandalorian verse, was the Book of Boba Fett necessary? I think we'll look back on it when the Filoni verse is done, and we're gonna be like, not necessary, not necessary. Should not been there. The Mandalorian episodes are incredible, though. The Return of the Mandalorian and episode 6 from the desert comes a stranger are just fantastic. David John talk a lot about how they try to make this universe feel like you're a kid in a sandbox playing with your toys. Episode 6 definitely feels like that. Luke, Ahsoka, Grogu, Mando, Boba for a cameo on his own show. Cad Bane showing down against Cobb Vanth. That's a big problem too. You introduce Cad Bane too late. You're kind of confused as the audience because it's kind of insinuated there's this rivalry between the two. But you don't see that. The whole show kind of should have set that up. And it failed. It failed to do that. So yeah. Um, yeah, it failed to do that. Um, so yeah, the Book of Boba Fett was just a struggle. The Mandalorian stuff was good. But besides that, yeah, the Book of Boba Fett was a real struggle. Episode 7 too was just like it didn't feel earned. The finale, you know what I'm saying? The finale felt very clustered, just a big action set piece that wasn't earned. An hour of us watching Pikes run around and me not caring really. It was cool action, but deserved? No, because you didn't care about the story beforehand. So yeah, Boba Fett was not a great start. Then we get Kenobi, which Kenobi is like the most hyped project in a long time, especially for Star Wars. It's the most hyped thing since Force Awakens. This is even The Last Jedi. I mean, how The Last Jedi had a lot of hype. I remember how excited I was for that film. And it kind of failed me. It kind of failed a lot of people. Kenobi. Episode 6 is good. Episode 3, there was just, I think Moses Ingram did a very good job as Riva. But I feel like it would have been better suited for her own show. When you think of this show, I'm not gonna say it's a bait and switch because I don't think that's true. This show, it did the wrong thing. It should have been a show about two men dealing with their past trauma in their own ways, right? Anakin, now Vader, abusing his trauma, and utilizing it to become a dark threat to the whole entire galaxy, becoming the very thing he fought against, and as a child, um, would absolutely despise. He became full of hatred, full of disarray. And he barely got him. He got him in episode 3, went away in episode 4, episode 5, he's there. Then episode 6, he comes in. Wasn't in enough of the show. I'm sorry. It's Vader versus Kenobi. I don't care about Kenobi versus Inquisitors. It's not what we came to watch. You could have him in the show, but once he came in, the Inquisitors have to be out. You have to have side characters in the story, but Reva was overutilized. Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker were underutilized. I don't know how they got this run. It's so disappointing too because Deborah Chow is so very talented. Deborah Chow is so very talented. It's adamantly it's very upsetting. I like episode 1 a lot. I like what it establishes. I like the Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen stuff. But it just if this was in another show with Reva, I'd be like, cool. Does it break canon? Sure. No, I guess not. But does it feel weird? Does it feel weird that there's somebody out there that knows about Luke? Doesn't it? Doesn't it feel weird that she stabbed two stab wounds as a child? And then again, doesn't it lessen Vader? Right? And Star Wars is infamous for bringing back characters from the dead. But it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right, right? I remember when Maul came back because I watched the Clone Wars from when it came out as a kid. I was obviously excited. But I'm like, this Savage Opress guy was cool. Why does Maul need to be back? What is the purpose of that? Cad Bane was never really killed, canonically. It's just like, why? And then, like, oh man, I'm gonna go on a rip. I'm gonna go on a rip, but I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, Kenobi, frustrating. I think that's a perfect way to describe it. Frustrating. Did I cry during the finale? Of course. It was a very emotional moment. Hayden back in the suit. Hayden back as Anakin Skywalker. It was a great way to end the show, but overall, the show was a disappointment. I will give a shout out to Vivian Lyra Blair. She was fantastic as little Leia. She was perfect as little Leia. It's how you would imagine a young Princess Leia. And her and Obi-Wan's relationship was a real highlight of the show. But overall, frustrating to say the least. I just banged my desk. Jesus. Frustrating to say the least. Yeah. All right, Andor. Andor, the best Star Wars show this year. Obviously, I loved the political spy espionage type deal with the whole entire show. It's not a show you could talk about ad nauseum, right? It's a show that's very simplistic in its nature. It takes figures you would see in the real world. It's a really good commentary on fascism, on dictatorships, on the military, on authoritarian governments and their abuse to the average citizen, the average middle class blue collar town, and how blue collar people, really the middle class, like Cassian's homeworld of Ferrix, really bear the most suffering because they kind of turn a blind eye to it because most of their life is about survival. It's about living. It's about making profit. They kind of turn their eye and that sort of deal. Cassian, the imperial prison system, the slave labor, essentially. All very good, all very detailed. Dedra Miro surreal Khan. The only real thing I didn't like was their relationship because it's not really clearly established what's going on there. We'll find out more in season 2, I'm sure. Luthen, the foundation of the rebellion. Like, the rebellion is not all sunshines and rainbows as we see in Star Wars Rebels with the Ghost Crew, right? There's some dark deepness to it. It is seen as a terrorist group. Like, they take severe actions to fight an oppressive regime. Saw Gerrera, um, all that sort of thing. The monologues from Mon Mothma, from Cassian Andor's mother. I can't. Her name slipped my mind. Um, and then yeah, just all of that story. Um, yeah, I mean, Ferrex, obviously the final arc. Narkia, um, all of that. The manifesto, Nemec's manifesto, all very well done. Like they said, the only complaint was Dedra and Surreal. Where was that going? Excuse me. What were they trying to establish really there? 100%. And also, I would say, uh, while this is a nice project for Star Wars, it is really good. It's not the direction Star Wars should move in. Because if Star Wars moves in this direction, they will not have a they'll not have a franchise move forward. Become kind of a B-list type franchise because it wasn't heavily watched by people. It didn't do well in the Nielsen ratings. I know it had an increase uh, when the finale came out. I think a lot had to do with word of mouth, and that's a good thing. But still, it was way less watched than all the other Star Wars Disney Plus projects. And that is concerning. That is concerning. Is that because of a fatigue thing? Is that because of a marketing thing? We will have to wait and see more projects come out because if The Mandalorian takes a dip, that's troublesome. But that's a real problem with Andor. Is it's like, while we should acknowledge that Andor is a great show, it's well written, it's sophisticated, it takes itself seriously, it's a breath of fresh air to Star Wars. It's not the way Star Wars should move because if Star Wars moves this way, the brand will die. Because what's Star Wars for? Kids. I wouldn't show my kids this if I had kids. I don't think kids are ready to watch this type of show that deals with espionage and sophisticated ideas on fascism and how governments and how senators like terrorism. Those it's like a real world commentary in space. Um, and while all Star Wars is that, but there's a deeper level of sophistication with this. So yeah, I think the brand should not go this way. But Andor was good. If you do this once in every while, I'm fine with it, but it cannot be the mainstay moving forward because you will lose kids. Yeah. So that's kind of the generalities, with the year and with all. Oh, and Tales of the Jedi was fantastic. Tales of the Jedi, love the style of animation. Really nice project. Gave us some added context to Ahsoka's abilities during Order 66, which was really nice. It was great to see Anakin Skywalker again, obviously. The young baby Ahsoka episode was really, really neat to get to see her upbringings before Plo Koon gets her. Um, and then obviously the aftermath of Order 66. It was nice to just get those bits and pieces of Ahsoka's life. And then the Dooku episodes were fantastic, kind of getting a more detailed sense of Dooku's turn, of how Dooku's ideology changes, why does Dooku view the Jedi this way? When we meet him in the prequel trilogy, when we meet him during the Clone Wars, that was all really nice to see for sure. Oof. Bruno, man, that's why I need co-host, man. I can't talk this long. I can't talk this long. I've only been on for 25 minutes. Look, sweat. Um, all right. So I don't remember how we did this last year exactly, but I think we kind of did something like this. So we'll first do our 2023 Marvel and Star Wars ranking. So we're gonna rank, or I will rank all of the projects every single Marvel project. This is kinda getting to be too much. I think next year when we do this, we might have to change it. Might have to rank Infinity Saga projects, then Multiversal Saga project, because it's just too much stuff. It's a lot of stuff to rank, and it's hard. It's like you're flipping a coin. And I don't know if I got all the projects. I didn't double check. So I think there's 40. Um, 23 plus 17. Yeah, 40. Um, so I've included everything that was released in the Infinity Saga. I did not include the Netflix shows. Everything on Disney Plus I included, like that came out on Disney Plus itself. So like Agents of Shield's not on there or anything of that sort. That was Netflix too, but you get the point. I included the holiday special. I included Werewolf by Night, and I included What If. So those will be on there. And yeah, and we'll go over each of the projects. I don't think there should be like too many surprises on this list. Like I think uh generally speaking, like this is a pretty fair list. Um yeah, I don't think there's gonna be any big discretions with this, or at least hope not. Okay, in the last spot we have She-Hulk. She-Hulk is bad, man. It's not very good. Um it's boring. It lacks sophistication, it lacks depth to me. And I like comedies, right? Comedies, for the sake of comedies are good, but uh this wasn't funny. Like there has to be some heart. I didn't feel a lot of heart. It feels like they put a lot of value into the Daredevil stuff. That's cool. That's great. But I know who Daredevil is. We've established him. We haven't established him in the MCU, but we know we've had good Daredevil stories. I wanted a good Jennifer Walters stories, and I didn't get that. This project is bad, like not memorable. Um, and I thought Tatiana did a good job playing She-Hulk, but just the story is just not very captivating. Um, no villain. Um, weird incel villain Reddit. Like I don't even know how to describe it. It was an abomination. No pun intended. The Incredible Hulk. Oh man, no Hulk love here. Edward Norton, great, really good in Glass Onion. I kind of like him as Bruce Banner and the Hulk, but this movie is very forgettable. It's really not mentioned. Betty Ross, rumored to be coming back in the MCU, but yeah, this movie rarely ever gets mentioned in the MCU. I think maybe one reference. I mean, we still have Thunderbolt Ross around, which is cool, but besides that, nothing much. Iron Man 2. Potential to have a really good story about Tony's alcoholism and that being the real villain. And it wasn't. I think Black Widow's worst MCU performance, I would say. Um, yeah, just a really bad sequel. It made a lot of money. Uh, Rob's great. There's not a lot of love about this film. There's not a lot to love about this film. Um, I mean, I don't even remember the villain's name. Was it Whiplash, right? I mean, just very non-memorable film. Ant-Man and the Wasp, again, not good. Who was the villain of this film? Ghost? The guy trying to steal the Pym particle? Yeah, very, like, not memorable film. Not good. Not as good as the first Ant-Man, who had Yellow Jacket, who was really an intriguing villain. Um, yeah, again, film that is pretty not memorable, right? The commonality, I think, with a lot of these films here in the bottom half is like they're just not memorable. It's not there's moments you remember, right? But the majority of the film is not good, or there is something glaring. This film was just really meant to just set up Avengers Endgame, right? With the quantum realm. Butch was his name. I believe his name was Butch. But besides that, is there anything memorable about this movie? No. Thor: The Dark World. Tom Hiddleston turns in a great performance as Loki. That's expected. Uh, Again, this is when they're still trying to do the Shakespearean type of Thor, right? You can even tell with the poster and the graphic they had, they were going again for more like Asgard's more like a Shakespearean Game of Thrones, not that violent, obviously, type of deal. It's fantastical world. This is pre-Thor, pre-humorous Thor, very humorous Thor. Malekith, not a very good villain. Um, the whole idea of the ether, not very well explained. Was it originally a stone? That's kind of been left vague. They were all supposed to originally be stones, but the ether is not a stone, and then it became a stone. Um, yeah, it just not very good. Tom Hiddleston's good, but it's like it's even his worst film. Um, yeah, like the Reality Stone, like it I don't know. The Reality Stone is very confusing. Yeah, Captain Marvel. I haven't watched this film in a very long time. Feels like it should be a Phase One film, and I think that's its biggest problem. It came out at a time when we were on a hot streak, and then we got this backstory film in the '90s, and you're kind of like, what? Why? Um, it just really didn't fit with what we were getting. You know what I'm saying? Pretty like non-memorable villain. I can't even think of the villain's name right now. Um, I'm hoping the Marvels is better, but I don't got much faith in that. The first Thor movie I kind of like. The stuff on Asgard is good with Loki, with Odin, with Heimdall. Tom Hiddleston turns in a great performance here, really underrated performance. It's actually a really simplistic but nice story. Again, it's just boring. Like it's a nice story about Thor regaining his powers. It actually has a really good arc for the character of Thor, from selfish to selfless. It has a nice arc for Loki. We understand Loki's motives. And you feel sympathy for him, right? With the Frost Giants and him not being really Asgardian. But it's 34, it's pretty boring. 33, Miss Marvel. Again, this show is very niche, but that's not a bad thing. I think Iman Vellani turns in a good performance as Kamala Khan, and I'm excited to see more of her. But for me, the show is very niche, and it's hard for me to connect with it. A lot of times, I need to connect, and it's hard. And that's no fault of the show itself. They were trying to connect with a different audience and bring in and incorporate new people into the MCU. And again, I thought from like a comic book standpoint, like the villains uh, were very poor. We had the guy, the detective from Spider-Man: No Way Home. Um, we had the uh, Superhuman Law Division going after Kamala Khan. The clandestines. I thought there was some stuff explained that wasn't very well explained. But I think purposely so. You could make an argument. The time travel stuff is cool, and I think could work its way back into the Kane Dynasty and that sort of thing. But overall, just a project I didn't resonate with. Oh, whoops. WandaVision. Oof, some people are not gonna like this being this long. There's only like 2 episodes of the show I like. Um, yeah, the show's just not for me. So that's why it's just slow on my list. Black Widow at 31. Florence Pugh, uh, obviously, I think a standout of this film. Really enjoyed Florence Pugh's performance. It's a good send off for Natasha, right? It's a good send off for ScarJo. But Taskmaster not great, Dreykov not great. The first Marvel film I watched in theaters So it does hold a special place in my heart, kind of. Um, but yeah, overall, some highs and lows. I think it was a very funny film. I liked the first act or so, and then it's just like Taskmaster, Dreykov, that final third act with the Red Room and stuff was like, nah, I was not with it, not with it. Love and Thunder. This movie is bad. Again, you've seen a lot of Phase 4 stuff here, folks. Um, Love and Thunder is not good. It is a massive step down from Thor Ragnarok that is about 20 spots or so plus ahead of it. Gore is the only saving grace here. I love Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. It feels like Thor has no arc in this film because he doesn't. He has no arc in this film. And we get Jane Foster back. Jane was definitely cool in this film. I liked her as the Mighty Thor. The end I do really like. The ending with Eternity, uh, like a being born of Eternity, Gore's son, now Thor's daughter, or excuse me, Gore's daughter, now Thor's daughter. Essentially, I'm really excited for that because I think that could add some depth to Thor's character because we're in desperate need of that. We're in absolute desperate need of that. Hawkeye again, another Phase 4 project here. Um, there was some intrigue. This show, I think, one of the big reasons it's slow is when you rewatch it. It has very little rewatchability because I think what was intriguing about this was the whole story with the gentleman who plays Lalo Salamanca and Better Call Saul, Jack. He's Jack. Is he Jack in this show? Yeah, he's Jack. And is it Eleanor Bishop? Yeah, that whole thing was really, really intriguing, and it was going to set up like criminal elements of New York. And then when Campaign showed up, it was like, oh, whoa, 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 this is crazy. Um, how is this going to end up? Are we going to get like a Clint and Hawkeye showdown? And I feel like the show was a cluster. There was a lot to do in this show. We had the whole Echo thing. We had Yelena. I thought Yelena again. Florence Pugh was a standout. I love her in that scene with Haley Steinfeld. It's Kate Bishop. I think Haley Steinfeld puts in a good performance as Kate Bishop. But overall, it's just like a cluster. It's just too much. And again, I don't think it was a good I don't think it was a good Clint Barnes Hawkeye story. What I wanted was a good Hawkeye story, and I feel like I was devoid of that. The show just tried to do too much, and it didn't do anything really, really well. So I think that's why it's here at 29. Far From Home. I mean, I really don't got much to say about Far From Home. It's very simplistic. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is good as Mysterio, but out of the 3 Spider-Man films, MCU Spider-Man films, this to me is by far the worst one. Again, it kind of struggles being post Endgame. Ends off Phase 3, weirdly enough. But yeah, it deals with Peter's identity being revealed and stuff. And yeah, just overall for me, not that great of a film, in my opinion. The Guardians Holiday Special is nice, right? It's a nice special presentation. I think there's some positives to take away from it. Like the big one I was talking about is like this is how Marvel should do their projects moving forward for introducing characters. But overall, it's just kind of insignificant. I think it's a really funny Drax and Mantis story. It's actually really funny. I think all the Guardians turned in great performances. James Gunn, the best. So I think this is very funny project, but it plays little significance in the MCU. So I think that's why it's kind of this low. What If in the 26th spot? Man, Phase 4 is just not doing well, man. You can kind of see a trend here. Phase 4 and Phase 1. Ooh, not a lot of Phase 2 and Phase 3 here. What If is really nice. There's some really good episodes. I really love the zombie stuff. The T'Challa Star-Lord, obviously. That was actually the last time we'll ever hear Chadwick's voice in a project. Sadly enough. We had some really good episodes. Hank Pym, killing the Avengers. Some really interesting concepts. But the end was really, really nice. The end with the Watcher, Infinite Ultron, like going throughout the multiverse with the Infinity Stones. We needed the multiversal Avengers. Oh, Sorcerer Supreme Strange might be the best thing in Phase 4. I mean, when I think about it, this project might or maybe should be higher on the list, but It's gonna be right here for now. Yeah, Werewolf by Night. I really like this story. Again, kind of forgettable. I like the campy horror of it. It's nice the genre they tapped into. I really enjoyed Elsa Bloodstone, Jack Russell, Man Thane, all of them were really, really interesting. I like the campiness of it. Really fun story. Another great story and like the mystical side, the monster fantasy side of the MCU. So I thought that was very well done. The original Doctor Strange movie is coming in at number 24. I don't think anything is bad with this film. I think again, it's a film that's visually very well done. Um, we get the ancient one. We get to learn again self is strange into a strange that learns how to help people. Uh, we deal with this morality question with Strange. Is why is he a doctor? Right? Doctors are meant to help people, but he's so selfish. Right? In this film, he loses like his hands. Right? He loses his thing he's best at, and he has to find something else. And obviously, he has to fight. Who does he fight? Not Lars Mikkelsen's character. Uh, is it Mars? What are the Lars? What is the Mikkelsen brothers' names? Uh, no. Lars Mikkelsen and his brother is like what? Mars, right? Mads Mikkelsen, right? Uh, Mads plays. Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen plays the villain. Yeah, right. I'm not going crazy here, right? Yeah, he plays the villain in this film, right? Yeah, and then Dormammu. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. No, that was really good. Uh, yeah, again, eh, okay film. But yeah, there's some niceness to it. There's a nice story to that. I'm forgetting a lot of stuff. Eternals. Okay. The Celestials were really cool. It was kind of cool to learn about the origins of this universe, the 616 universe. Icarus, Richard Madden turned in a great performance. One of my favorite Phase 4 characters. Um, Lawn movie for sure. Ajax. I felt like some of the characters were kind of poor. Ajax, Sprite. I thought Cersei was really well played. Thought Cersei was a really interesting character. I'm really interested to see what they do with him in the future. But I'm more interested from the fact we now have Eros, Thanos' brother, right? They're half, right? He's an Eternal, right? Um, so yeah, I'm really interested in seeing where they go in the future with this. But yeah, the Deviants weren't really that intimidating. They were just monsters that ran around, kind of. Um, Gilgamesh and Thena's story was pretty interesting, but I like the way this movie went back and forth. I think there were some stretches. Again, any scene with the Celestial was terrifying. You felt the scale of the Celestials. And you realize, well, they're the true bad guys of this whole thing, right? Because they orchestrated all of this. Iron Man 3, again, I think this does a really good job of dealing with Tony's PTSD. What this film does so well that the second one failed to do is it does a good job of implementing a real world element of Tony dealing with his anxiety, his PTSD post New York, everything he's been through. He's been through the most and will continue to go through the most of any Marvel character throughout the entirety of the saga. And then at the end of the film, his Malibu mansion is gone, and he kind of throws it all away. But we know he will pick up the mantle again. And he's kind of at peace with Pepper. Um, Yeah, and he's just kind of found himself, right? Harley helps him out in this film. We get Killian The fake Mandarin. I know people don't love that twist, but it is what it is to me. I think Killian's a solid villain, actually. It has a really, really good end fight, I think, at the shipyard with Rhodey. So I think Iron Man 3 is a fairly solid film, and I think, again, Robert Downey Jr. turns in a great performance. All right, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think people underrate this project a lot. Um, I think The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is actually really, really solid. The Flag Smashers aren't great, but I love the character of Captain America and what he stands for. And I think this was a really good story with Sam finding himself. I think John Walker's a really interesting character that they implemented. One of the better Phase 4 characters. Bucky was fantastic in this show. Zemo. There's a lot of interesting characters. Madripoor. The Power Broker twist wasn't very good. I think on the villain side, the show really, really struggled. Um, Isaiah Bradley again, very, very fantastic. I love that whole element with this show. But the villains were definitely a downer. That pins the show down a huge peg for me. Avengers: Age of Ultron. Ultron, a very, very fantastic villain. Very well done. Bruce and Natasha's romance, very, very odd, very strange. Um, Again, you kind of start to see the conflict between Tony and Cap. Thor, very much underutilized in this film. Hawkeye has some really good moments with Wanda and Pietro. We get introduced to those two, and obviously Pietro dies. Kind of the end of the whole Hydra saga. And we realize, Tony can be his own worst enemy. We still deal with those, Tony's selfishness, and how he's not fully become selfless yet. So I kind of like those ramifications, and I'm sure they will turn their head back up or the consequences of those with Ultron could possibly turn their head back up in Phase 5 and 6 and beyond. Okay, next up we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think this is obviously a peg down from the first one. I think Yondu's story is really well done. We get more development of Gamora and Peter Quill's relationship. Nebula and Gamora's relationship, I think, is very well done. I think Ego is an okay villain. I think the Guardians franchise really big struggle is the villain. I think Ego is better than Ronan. Um, but no, the connection between this team is still fantastic. But yeah, I think this movie is going to be in the 19th spot. I still think it's really solid. I just don't think it's great or anything. Spider-Man Homecoming. I absolutely love the Vulture played by Michael Keaton. One of the best villains, I think, in the MCU. A top 10, top 12 type villain. The relationship between Tony Stark and Tom Holland Spider-Man. This story felt new and unique. It kind of drops you into the point where Spider-Man is now on the main scene. It's new, it's refreshing, it works for the MCU. And we see the selflessness of Spider-Man at the end, turning down the offer to be a part of the Avengers. But being Tony's pupil, I actually really like. I know there's some mixed feelings on it, but it works for the MCU. And overall, a really good ending. Just a really well done Spider-Man film. Captain America: The First Avenger. Now, this is like a film to me that I can just sit and watch and just totally relax and enjoy. There is not much it's just the perfect story, right? I said how much I adore the character of Captain America. And this is just like the amalgamation of a Captain America story. Like, this is when you read the word Captain America, this film should come in your mind. The heart-filled, joyous, do anything Captain America, the star-spangled man with the plan who would do anything. I think Haley Atwell turns in a great performance as Peggy Carter. I think Red Skull is a very, very, very fascinating type of villain that I absolutely enjoy. And it's just a really simple done story. It's about Captain America fighting a fascist Nazi regime, just called themselves Hydra. And it's a really, really well done story. Um, yeah, just Captain America, the best. Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. Really enjoy this film. It gets crazy, it gets wild. Wanda as a villain was terrifying. I think Raimi's horror elements in this film are really, really well done. It's a really good Doctor Strange story. Um, we'll learn about his past demons with his sister, and again, his continued journey of becoming more selfless. Christine Palmer, him coming to accept that he can't have everything in life, and that's difficult for somebody who is a doctor, right? Who has succeeded, and I think that's the uniqueness of Strange's story in the MCU. Him and Mordo and the Illuminati, I think, could have done better, but you feel the immense power of Wanda's character, and I think that was the whole point. But it felt like cameos for the sake of cameos. I wish there was a little bit more to the Illuminati, but again, really good build off of No Way Home, and I think this film is very fitting where it is. 15, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. A clear step down from the first film, but still overall very well done. I don't really have any massive complaints. Would say, the main character Shuri might not be your best character of the film, which I think is a big thing to me. But Namor as a villain sort of thing, really really worked. I think Talokan and Wakanda coming together at the end was very well done. Uh, T'Challa having a son, I think, is going to immensely work for the MCU because I think he matters so much. Just the way they handled the real life past of Chadwick's death. Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams, I thought was really well done. Okoye, all of that. I think this film was just really well done. It drags a little bit in some parts, I will say, but no major complaints for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. 14, Ant-Man. Oh, I think Yellow Jacket is a really, really well done villain. Again, the story is not monumental, it's not massive, but Scott Lang as Ant-Man, Hank Pym, the Pym family, all of that. All really interesting stuff there that we learned. Kind of a nice, like, side piece to the main Marvel Cinematic Universe story at this time. And Scott Lang, Ant-Man, really, really well done. Funny, simplistic, not too sophisticated, but Yellow Jacket, you feel the immense uh, fear illuminating from him, right? You feel the fear that he radiates off. And it's not just, oh, status quo businessman, that's crazy. There's a little bit more depth to him, right? It's not like Obadiah Stane and like Iron Man 1. Speaking of Iron Man 1, yeah, I think that's its weakest point is Obadiah Stane. I think that was a good segue. It just feels like, oh, rich businessman turns evil. Um, but yeah, again, just it started all this. So it has to be this high. It's kind of like the new hope. When you look back on Iron Man in the next 30 years, you'll be like, this is a new hope of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because it just turned everything on its head. It just created the greatest cinematic universe of all time. I think it created the best thing for film of all. This saved like movies to me. What is keeping movie theaters alive? These films, because they immensely matter. They resonate with a wide audience range, and you can't tell me otherwise. Um, and I also believe that this film, just Robert Downey Jr., the perfect cast, and maybe like the best casted character ever. Not just in comic book film, but of all time. He turns in fantastic performance. Gwyneth Paltrow, um, and yeah, fantastic, fantastic film. Again, the only problem was Obadiah Stane, but that was not the purpose of this film. It's like, Tony discovering he needs to atone for his sins and um, build his suits and becomes the first real superhero. And the first, we had the Superman films in the 80s and the Spider-Man films in the 2000s, but kicks off something massive. Moon Knight, number 12. As you can see, I really love this project. I think Oscar Isaac was really well casted. Excuse me. This was really well done. overall fantastic project. Arthur Harrow's like the archetype of how you should write at least a good villain. Um, his love interest, just the overall story, like us trying to figure out what's going on, the music. Every day I wake up and I start to break up, lonely as a man. It's just all well done. Oscar Isaac turns in a fantastic performance. The trippiness of it, the fights, the suits, the practicals, all of it. I love the story. I just loved how it kept you on the edge of the seat. I will say, episode 6 is not great. The finale, just again feels like two giant crocodile and a crocodile god and and Khonshu, a dead bird fighting pyramids. That was not fun. But Steve and Mark's dynamic, Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, I thought was fantastic, and I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed Oscar Isaac's performance. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Wenwu, again, a very, very, very solid villain. Simu Liu plays a fantastic Shang-Chi. I guess you could say not a great second act, but the beauty of this film, some of the best fight choreography. I can't wait to see what Daniel Destin Creighton can do with the Kane Dynasty, especially how good he did with the kung fu and the martial arts aspect of this film. Uh, some of the shots, the choreography, I thought was really well done. Probably the more solid Phase 4 film for sure. Top 10, baby. Avengers Endgame. This is a classic, man. This is a big film, obviously. Um, ends off the entire Infinity Saga, the most successful movie franchise. Obviously, we're still going on with it, but it ends off the first chapter of it. Perfect ended for the big six, and especially Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark, Iron Man, Thanos, a great villain. This film doesn't really get great into the last hour. There are moments, but the last hour of this film is really special and really emotional, and does a good job of capping it all off. Captain America: Civil War, again, big time film. Going to be a big, memorable middle point of this franchise. I think it's a really good Cap story. I think it's a really good Tony story. And you can feel the raw emotion. You can connect with these characters. It feels very real, and the consequences of this film are still felt even in the MCU with the Sokovia Accords that are now gone. But you still feel the ramifications of how this really dampened the Avengers, even at the end. There wasn't really a clear, point where these characters ever reconciled with each other and understood their mistakes. They just fought because they it's what they knew how they did knew how to do, and that's what they had to do. Uh, but a really well done story. It really humanized Cap more. Cap making a mistake, not telling about how Tony's parents died, and yeah, it's just you can understand the characters' motives. Again, Russo brothers, fantastic job. Number 8, we have Thor Ragnarok. Really, really funny film. The problem with this though is like as you watch it more, it gets less funny. But when the first like 3 to 4 times you watch it, the jokes hit really well. A really well done Loki story. A unique take on the Thor character. I think Hela was at this point the best villain of the Thor franchise. And it was just a new, unique, refreshing take, vibrant colors, just a well done Taika film. And it was just during a stretch where Taika was doing such a great job with all the films he was working on. So yeah, that's why it's here at number 8. Number 7 is the Loki TV show. I think this is the biggest show, obviously, of Phase 4 so far, dealing with the multiverse. Tom Hiddleston's best performance as Loki. I know that's crazy to say, but Loki has always been my favorite character in the MCU. And I think this show definitely did him justice. Sylvie, Mobius, all the characters, the TVA. It was just new, refreshing. It did a good job of explaining the threat that the multiverse is, and that the TVA is, and that Kane is. A great mystery. The Void. with Richard Grant playing classic Loki, the Lokis, like all of that was really, really, really well done. I don't have really any complaints at all at this show, and I can't wait for Loki season 2. The Avengers, a classic first team up movie. Loki, fantastic as a villain. A really good Hulk actually story. It was probably the last time we really loved the character of the Hulk. All of these characters are great here. The classic uh, team up shot. Again, I like the dynamic between Natasha and Hawkeye, Thor, Loki, Cap. All these characters having to come and assemble together, um, dealing with their own character flaws and their character traits conflicting with each other and how they operate. But to see them come together for this first time and be able to take down the Chitauri, all very, very well done. Captain America Winter Soldier, I mean, classic. Simplistic. You feel the emotion. It has that darker feeling that I hope Secret Invasion is able to invoke. Again, really good film for Natasha. Great Sam. Great Steve Rogers story. So yeah, I really, really love this movie. I know some people say it's a little bit overrated. Bucky is great and terrifying as a villain. You feel the raw emotion. This film is just simplistic, grounded, and that's why I really love it. It just feels like it could happen in the real world. And I think the Russos, this is the start of their takeoff and their ascension to be able to direct Infinity War and Endgame. Guardians of the Galaxy, a classic, probably I think it's the best team up movie besides Infinity War, but it's one of the best origin stories. Ronan's not great. That's the only thing I could say. But besides that, every character is fantastic. It's crazy what James Gunn's able to do. It's probably one of the more amazing comic book stories of all time to take these niche comic book characters that not a lot of people know about and to make them mainstream and popular is just unbelievable. And it's a fantastic film. It's the first Marvel film I actually ever watched, and I really fell in love with these characters, and it holds a special place in my heart. But it's just a really fantastic and well-made film. Black Panther, classic, fast-paced, but there's not a second waste. Uh, Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, like some of the best performances. Chadwick Boseman, obviously, rest in peace. Just a fantastically made film. Ryan Coogler, masterclass. Like, there's just so many great things you can say about the beauty of this film. The final fight, again, follows the hero's journey very much so, but also it's just so well done, and it's a fantastic film to me, and it's my favorite. It's probably my favorite solo film. Spider-Man: No Way Home. Uh, This film does a great job with nostalgia, but it also does a great job with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. You feel the weight of Aunt May's death. You feel his raw emotion as he's trying to kill the Green Goblin. Um, it is fascinating to me that they were able to take William Dafoe's Green Goblin from the first Spider-Man. I think William Dafoe closely followed behind Doc Ock was the best Spider-Man villain, obviously, and one of the best comic book villains of all time. But then in this film, to make him even more terrifying was just, and obviously you probably all know what scene I'm talking about. Him on the apartment was terrifying, just how menacing he was. And then to incorporate Tony and Andrew Garfield, Toby, um, Spider-Man films being the first superhero films I grew up with, it very much held a special place in my heart to see Toby again and see these characters come together and establish the multiverse and establish how cool this is going to get, not with just the Spider-Man character, but with all of these characters. And at number one, before we take a little bit of a break here, I need to rest my voice. We have Avengers Infinity War with Thanos. I think this is number one mostly because it feels like more so like a Thanos movie. You feel the weight and the threat of Thanos. And this film has really no cons. It turns in some of the great performances. The battle on Titan between Strange and all the Avengers, then him coming to Wakanda. Uh, the cataclysmic loss of this film with Gamora, and at the end where the Avengers are snapped away, you know they're gonna come back, but you feel the weight of the loss. You feel like, oh, Thanos is different, right? The beginning of this film, Loki's death, like all of it, it's just so well done. Thanos' monologue, Thanos taking out the Hulk, like you just throughout the film, like it's almost like you're rooted for your own hometown team and you just don't believe that they're gonna lose. You just have that feeling that they're not gonna lose, but throughout the film, like it's telling you they're gonna lose. You just deny it. And it's just so well done. Like no 2.5 hours, like no minute of this 2.5 hour film is wasted. By far and away my favorite MCU film. And again, it has a lot to do with how well they did the villain. A lot of films have a hard time doing villains, right? Because you want to focus so much on the hero and the hero's friends and the hero's love interest that you kind of forget about the villain. But this film does not do that. This film definitely heavily focuses on Thanos and his motives, and it does a really good job of establishing his threat and why he's doing this. Okay, so that's my Marvel rankings. I'm going to take a 10-minute break, so we'll be back, or about an 8-minute break. We'll be back at around 9:15. We're gonna go and play just some lo-fi beats here. So one second here. Uh, I just want to play something, and I get copyright strike. I don't care. So, uh, one second here. We will be back shortly because I need to take a break. We're sharing audio. Let me make sure this is all good. All right, we'll be right back.
Show me the one whose safety deems such destruction. This is the way.
Like a panther.
Okay, and yeah, we should be back. Yeah, we back. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Yeah, we're back. We're good. Okay. Yeah, let's go right back into it. So we just got done with our Marvel rankings. Now let's go into Star Wars, and then we will do, to wrap it up, an anticipation list for both Star Wars and Marvel. I kind of want to do this a little bit quickly because I feel like I'm losing my voice, but I want to do my due diligence here now, folks. So if I have to take another break, I'll take another break. But let's get into the Star Wars run right now. Oh, whoops. Let me pull this up. Okay, slideshow. Okay, here we go. Here are my Star Wars rankings. The Rise of Skywalker is going to come in at number 18. It's my least favorite Star Wars project. It is a disappointed end to the franchise. I just think Return of the Jedi, whatever you say about the Ewoks, whatever you say about that film, I think it has the perfect ending to Luke and Anakin and Vader and all of those characters. And I don't want to like say this. I want to put this in the best way possible. It feels like my ending. I have to acknowledge that this stuff exists, but I don't like watching this stuff because it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And this, again, Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, they all turn in a great performance. But Palpatine coming back, it's just this film feels like a glorified fan fiction. Attack of the Clones, the romance is not good. It's that simple. The writing with the romance, it's just it in no way invokes that romantic feeling at all. It's just weird. It's like he's very clingy. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The Obi-Wan stuff is fun because it's so sporadic. It's out there. It's very Obi-Wan in nature, right? Him trying to pick up Anakin's pieces, him trying to basically figure out why the Clone Wars started. There's not a lot to love about this film. Count Dooku's not great. It's probably the worst version of Count Dooku. Yeah, not a very good film. The Phantom Menace. This is a film when I watched it as a kid, I would just skip to the end. I'd skip to the third act to watch the fight. Pod racing. Again, not a lot to love. Not a lot to love about this film. Liam Neeson turns into a great performance as Qui-Gon. Ewan McGregor, that's fun. Trade negotiations. This is even a bad political, it's not even political thriller. It's not good. Like, it's just not good. It's not good political opera. It's boring. It doesn't invoke you like Star Wars when it's at its best. You feel an emotional connection, right? Because of real world implications, and then you also feel like you're in that universe, and you just don't feel that, right? This film just feels boring. Yeah, just boring. The Bad Batch again. The show's not complete yet, but I did a recent rewatch of the show before season 2 comes out on Wednesday. Yeah, this show. I think there's a really good dynamic between Hunter and Omega, but feel like at some points it's like every episode I felt like when I rewatch, I'm like, oh, Omega's the only character here who's morally correct, right? Even though logically she might not be correct, she's the only one with morality. There was no conflict within the Bad Batch besides obviously Crosshair defecting. And I feel like we get enough Crosshair. I felt like the Bad Batch itself were at points like not the most interesting thing. I felt like the stuff on Camino with the Empire, the dephasing of clones, Hauser, like that. Those all stories were really, really compelling. And I feel like the only thing compelling about the Bad Batch was what is like what's up with Omega and like Hunter and Omega's dynamic. Echo, Tech, and Wrecker really lack character arcs. Wrecker's arc was really him losing his mind because of the inhibitor chip, and then that was fixed very quickly. He had kind of the Hulk moment, and then kind of um, got out of it very quickly. Uh, so yeah, cool cameos. I'm expecting a little bit more conflict within the Bad Batch, hopefully, and some character arcs from Echo, Tech, and Wrecker. Star Wars Rebels. I know a lot of people are like, what? This show again suffers from the same problem the Bad Batch does. Um, it's it's too like it focuses on this group of characters for 4 seasons of animated television. That first season is really really bad. Like that first season is definitely worse than the first season of the Bad Batch. Like there's only a couple of good episodes here, right? With the Grand Inquisitor, it makes the Empire look like a joke until Thrawn shows up. And for the most part, like this show is essentially saved by Clone Wars characters. I think a lot of the great episodes, Twilight of the Apprentice, really, when you watch Twilight of the Apprentice, you're like, I care what happens to Ezra and Ahsoka here, not the fact that Darth Maul and Vader are literally in those 2 episodes with Ahsoka Tano. I do not give a crap what happens to the damn Ghost Crew. I'm sorry. Um, there is, however, I don't want to like crap all over this show. There is, however, good dynamic between Ezra and Kanan. Ezra and Kanan really shine in this show. The Sabine stuff is nice. It feels like late in the show. We don't get much with her until like season 3, season 4. Zeb, like there's not a lot with those characters, right? Callus is weird. Like the only really great Imperial in the show, especially a show that focuses entirely on the Empire's oppression, is Thrawn, and that's it. Vader all too quickly leaves. I just have problems with this show. I don't love it. I think it's wildly overrated. I think that's my big problem with it. I think it's just wildly overrated. You watch the Clone Wars, which just has some of the most unique stories, has a wide variety of characters it touches on, and then you go to this. For 2 seasons, again, the Clone Wars took a while to find its footing. I 100% agree with you, but it's not an excuse. It's the excuse. You gotta figure it out at some point, right? Like the Bad Batch is doing the same thing. Like I'm like, figure it out. I shouldn't have to give the excuse for the same project every time. Like, be good right off the bat. Just be good. This show took 2 seasons, 2 years to get good. Like really good. And that was because the assertion of a fantastic menace, calculated villain who failed only because of like nepotism and like the inequality and um, the Empire's value of loyalty over tactics, right? That's the only reason Thrawn failed. 13, The Last Jedi. This is only a film I've seen like 4 times, maybe like 2 or 3 times fully. I don't have much to say because this film just it hurts me to watch. again, I don't want to say they chastise the character of Luke. I don't want to really go through that. You could have your opinions on this film. I don't love what they do with the character of Luke. You can say that moment with him in front of the tanks, with him force projecting is a good moment. It's not. It's not, in my opinion. It's very predictable. I would have liked it if saw the green lightsaber. He made it feel even more real. We didn't know it. You knew it right away when the salt doesn't move. You knew it when he pulled the blue lightsaber out. If they made it less knowable, I think it would have been a lot cooler. I also felt like Luke sacrificing his life would have been a lot more interesting. Like, Star Wars is like poetry, as George Lucas would say in rhymes. Him ending his life similarly to Obi-Wan, I thought would have been much more compelling. I think the dyad's really interesting. I think Snoke's death, especially a lot of the problems I have with this film come from the fact they're not built off of in The Rise of Skywalker, and it's a whole thing to do with them not doing a good enough job planning. But yeah, I think it's a good send-off film. It's not a great send-off film for Mark Hamill for his final big performance as Luke. I think he turns in a great performance. Some would say his best in Star Wars. I don't know how you could say that. Watch Return of the Jedi. But yeah, everyone's got their opinions, and I don't love this film. Book of Boba Fett. I think it's slightly better only because I think the Mandalorian episodes are absolutely fantastically well done, well shot with some new unique camera angles. The way they do lighting, with the rain type planet he's on was very fascinating. Him getting a Naboo starfighter, Grogu learning from Luke, Luke and Ahsoka, Cad Bane versus Cobb Vanth, Freedom Town, Boba Fett versus Cad Bane. All those moments were really well done. However, the titular character Boba Fett was not well done. I do like his story with the Tuskens. But the show just didn't know what it wanted to be. Did it want to be the Mandalorian season 3? Did it want to be the Book of Boba Fett? And the show didn't know what it wanted to do. So yeah. Solo, a Star Wars story. I adore this film. I think this film is underrated. I wish they would do a Solo 2 or build off this project with Lando. We don't know much more about what's going on with Lando. Probably won't even happen. Donald Glover, fantastic casting. But Alden Ehrenreich did a good job as young Han Solo. Again, I think the one argument you could have about this film is the fact that it's kind of like a checkoff list of stuff. And I thought Enfys Nest and I can't remember their game. Is that what they were called? Enfys Nest, right? Yeah. What was that the character's name? I don't know. I don't remember. She played the Flag Smasher in Falcon the Winter Soldier. But yeah, they were okay as like villains. But it was a nice story, and there was like a nice setup with Amelia Clark taking over Crimson Dawn and Kira like being in connection with Maul. What's going on there? Han going off to work with Jabba. Does like Crimson Dawn go after Han, or what's up with that? It felt like a setup here. I know we got this. This movie was kind of like a checkoff list, but I feel like we could have had an interesting adventure with Donald Glover's Lando and Han, and then Kira going after him or something with Maul. I don't know. I feel like we could have gotten that story. But yeah, this film I think is very solid. And again, it's low on people's list just because it came out after The Last Jedi. It came out during Infinity War, Deadpool. It had a tough time, man. But I think I love this film a lot just because after The Last Jedi, I just fell so out of love with Star Wars that this really rejuvenated my hope. Obi-Wan Kenobi comes in at 10. We touched on it earlier in the show. Obviously, I have problems with this show, right? I think it's not very good. It's a frustrating show. I shouldn't say it's not very good. I think it's frustrating. I think there were some really good moments. I think Obi-Wan versus Vader is really well done. I think Vader and Anakin are underutilized. I think Reva and the Inquisitors are overutilized. Visually, I don't think this show looks stunning, and it should have looked stunning. Yeah, I think there was just some problems with this show. I wish this show should have been perfect. This is one of the things you have to get right if you're going to do it, and they didn't get it right. So that's why I think it's frustrating in a lot of people's book, and that's why it's kind of on the middle of my list here. The Force Awakens. I think The Force Awakens is a really, really well done film. I will never forget going to see this film, my first Star Wars film in theaters. Uh, really well done film. I really have no problems. Kylo was the villain, Rey as the new character, Finn. I think you could argue, like when we see the poster and the promotional material, Finn kind of gets robbed. I think for sure, a stormtrooper turned Jedi would have been such a interesting story. He should have been the lead. But anyways, um, yeah, I think it's all really well done in this film. You could say it's kind of a copy of A New Hope, and sure, while I agree, I think it's a nice. It does a good job of playing on that nostalgia, but also being new. And it also gives you a lot of hope for the rest of the sequel trilogy. But after this one, but it just tanks. It's the best Finn story. It's because Finn's story goes down the hill, and I loved it. It's a good Harrison Ford send off, and it's a sad one too, and it makes you fear Kylo Ren. Rogue One. This probably will probably move up my list after Andor season 2, but I feel the weight, you feel the impact of the film. Ben Mendelsohn's um, director Krennic is terrifying. The Empire is terrifying. This feels like a very much a war movie, right? Andor feels very much like that spy espionage, the takeover of the oppressive government, and then this feels like the big climactic battle between the allies, which are known as rebellion, and that oppressive government and their big force, which is the Death Star and Scarif. And it's just an emotional, and it's gonna become more emotional, I think, once we watch Andor. I think the Andor is gonna have the same effect that the Clone Wars did on Revenge of the Sith, where it just adds a lot more context, a lot more depth. And I think we're gonna feel the same way with Andor as we do with the Clone Wars and what it did to Revenge of the Sith. Andor will do something similar with Rogue One, which just adds more context, adds more layers. Jyn Erso, like I don't have much to complain about this film. I guess you could say Acts 1 and 2 aren't the best, but I still enjoy Acts 1 and 2. I enjoy them assembling together. I enjoy the fact that the rebellion, again, it shows that it's not all pretty. There's infighting even within the umbrella, the empire, or if within the rebellion, like Mon Mothma. Again, we see Mon Mothma throughout. Um, Andor, and we understand why she's more passive compared to Luthen. We kind of have Luthen's rebellious figures still in the rebellion. So that sort of thing really interests me with Rogue One. And it's just a really, really, really well done third act. Andor here at number 7. Again, definitely better than Rogue One, in my opinion. Like I was saying, it's a really good story, simplistic, has a really good commentary on fascism and oppressive regimes. Like the political allegories, I thought were really well done. The only thing I thought was weird was this Dedra and Surreal thing. I felt like a character or two could have died. I feel like there's a lot to do in season 2, but I trust Tony Gilroy. The prison arc, uh, with Andy Serkis's character is just absolutely fantastic. One Way Out, just great episode. The monologues in this show from Luthen, Mothma, uh, and Serkis's character is absolutely fantastic. This could be higher, but I don't think it has the grandiose of some other projects. Revenge of the Sith, man, classic, very emotional, a great end cap to the prequel trilogy, a trilogy I think that's very low on my list. But Revenge of the Sith is just a classic. Even to this day, you still feel the weight to me. The Battle of the Heroes, Anakin's fall. I think it's all really well done in this film. Obviously, this film is very divisive as well in its own way, where the new fans absolutely adore this film, while the old fans are mixed on it, I would say, for sure. I thought it was well done. I thought the battles were better. You feel the weight, you feel the grandiose, as this being the turning point in the saga. A New Hope, a classic, the start of this whole thing, again, kind of like the Iron Man, how we talked about how the Iron Man will always be remembered as the turning point in the MCU. This was the turning point for Star Wars, right? This was the beginning. A very well paced film. Vader and Obi-Wan, you feel the emotional weight, Luke blowing up the Death Star. Overall, just like a really, really well-made film for the time. Exciting, exhilarating, uh, and it could have really ended right there, right? But to get added context, added to the story, it's great to see. It really started it all off. The cantina is like the most iconic thing to me. When I think of Star Wars, I think of that cantina. Mos Eisley Cantina. It's just so well done. It feels so real, yet at the same time, you get the fantastical elements of it, the mysticism of it. Just well done. The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian also holds a special place in my heart because it rejuvenated my love for the franchise. It was kind of falling out of love with Star Wars, but this show and the character of Din Djarin is just so fascinating to me. It was new. We've got so much Jedi and Sith content. The Mandalorians were always that third other type of deal. Like, would you rather be a Sith or a Jedi? No, I'd rather be a Mandalorian. That type of deal. And just the ability to make a mass character, you hear his emotions, and then to have a little baby Yoda, Grogu, be his companion, a mercenary takes on a child. So simple in story. Um, you incorporate Force lore. You incorporate a Western space. It fantastically well done. It's a breath of fresh air for Star Wars. And then season two, what it does so well is it builds out this whole entire universe that he's in. He's now the Iron Man of the Star Wars universe, connected to Ahsoka, Luke, Bo-Katan, Boba Fett. All these players are going to be a big role in the Filoniverse and ultimately end up fighting Thrawn probably. Just so really interesting. And then probably him, a lone Mandalorian, becoming the Mandalore most likely in season 3 is such a unique story. And he does it all. He's the best. Din Djarin is probably my second favorite Star Wars character, probably my third favorite character in fiction. And Baby Yoda, fantastic. We love Baby Yoda. So this show has held a special place in my heart. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, again, another show that holds a special place in my heart. It's my first piece of Star Wars. I mean, uh, the final season, the final arc, is something I won't touch again because it's that special. It is that good. It is just so beautifully done. It's a great ending to my favorite show of all time. I'm gonna get emotional talking about it. I'll never forget just staying up was a little kid watching it at 9 p.m. on the Cartoon Network. Savage Opress, the reemergence of Darth Maul, seeing Anakin Skywalker most weeks, Cad Bane, like so many iconic characters came from this show and are continuing and now to live action Star Wars, which is something I never thought I would say. Without the Disney acquisition, this would never happen, of course, but so many great stories. Um, just overall a fantastic ensemble type of show that details the Clone Wars and everything that transpired in those 3 years. The Empire Strikes Back comes in at number 2. Again, this film is so well made. The iconic "I am your father" scene, Luke versus Vader, the stuff on Hoth, so well done. Bespin, Lando's betrayal, then Lando helping out Han Solo frozen in carbonite. You feel the weight of what our heroes are experiencing. You understand the loss. The Empire literally does strike back. Luke gets his hand cut off. Han's gone. Leia's distraught. Luke finds out about Vader being his dad. He meets Yoda. The training sequences with Yoda. There's not like a minute of downtime in this film where like, oh, anything is bad here. There's absolutely nothing bad. You get the introduction of the Emperor. Even when you think our heroes are getting away, they don't. You feel the loss of this film. You feel the weight of this film. And there is a moment of hope, obviously, at the end that they're going to get them, but you could tell the love that Luke and Vader have for each other, even though they're opposite ideological wise, and Vader literally just cut his son's hand off and thought his son committed suicide. But yeah, just such a fantastically well made film. and it should be number one. But Return of the Jedi also holds a special place in my heart because I think it has just the perfect final act. From the moment Luke is taken onto the Death Star to the end of the film is just some of my favorite Star Wars. I know you may not like the stuff in Jabba's past. I didn't as a kid. I always thought it was goofy, but I've come to enjoy it more. But again, the final fight's so emotional. It holds such a special place. That and I always toss it between the final fight in Revenge of the Sith and the final fight in Return of the Jedi for my favorite moment in Star Wars, my favorite battle. Um, Anakin coming back and defeating the man who manipulated him his entire life is such a beautiful moment. And again, it's just such a beautiful ending to what was the saga at one point. Now it's not. Can't do anything about that, unfortunately. But yeah, such a really, really well made, well done film that I will always appreciate. And the third act is just a perfect way to wrap up the entire saga and what was those three films back in 1983. Um, but it does also a good job of wrapping up the prequel trilogy, which is something the sequel trilogy fails to do, is wrap up all three trilogies, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what I think. And those are my 2023 Star Wars rankings. So let me take a sip of water here. Oof, oof. Uh, whew. Um, so yeah, we got two more things left to do. I'm gonna try to keep this thing under 2 hours. Let's see if I can do it because I'm kind of losing my voice here. Ooh, we're dropping the lump one bar. That's not good. Let me give this a second. Okay, we should be good. All right, here we go. We'll do Marvel first because we just did Star Wars. So we'll do Marvel first. My anticipation level for all the 2023 projects coming out. Okay, here we go. Now 2023 is weird because we don't know the exact Marvel slate because Echo isn't done. Like Echo's supposed to come out either at the end of 2023. It was supposed to be originally spring, but it has some delays in filming and I think some script work being redone. So I think it might come out beginning 24. Covenant of Chaos will probably come out 24, but it's listed as winter 23, 24. So I don't know. So I included it just in case, but there's a very good chance that one or multiple of these projects will be in 2024. So if you're seeing this video in like mid 2023, that's why. Um, the Marvels at 10. Again, I didn't really like the Captain Marvel. I didn't love WandaVision, and I didn't love Miss Marvel. Those three projects were very low for me, and you're kind of incorporating the main characters of Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, but Monica Rambeau, who I actually really did enjoy from WandaVision. I like Kamala Khan. It's just the show, like I was saying, it didn't like resonate with me. It was for a different audience, of course. I'm not a huge fan of Captain Marvel in the MCU. Just not a character I've really enjoyed, jived with at all. And by the plot leaks of this film, I won't go through them. This film just sounds not great. There's gonna be a musical element to it. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't love the first one. I'm excited that there's gonna be a cosmic element to this film. I think the MCU, like in this phase, and I was saying this, I think when Phase 4 is coming out, needs to explore the cosmic side of this uh, world more. We just had the Guardians, really. But I hope this film explores the cosmic element more. And I'm curious to learn more about the bangle and that sort of thing. Does it have any connections to the multiversal war? Does it have any connection to Kane? That sort of thing. 9, Agatha Covenant of Chaos. I don't think this project was necessary. Agatha's an okay villain to me. And again, I'm just not a huge fan of WandaVision. There's not much I have to say about this unless this is like an exploration of how do the witches, how do the mystical figures during this time feel about Wanda, the Scarlet Witch? Is this about the discovery of the Scarlet Witch, or is this about like them trying to get Wanda back? What is this about? Because like This is about the kids. If the kids are back, that's also really interesting because the kids are really, really extremely powerful. So is Agatha going to babysit? I know Agatha at one point babysits Franklin Richards. Like, what's this really going to be about here? Because if it's just Agatha and the other witches, I'm not really, really intrigued at all. Echo, I thought Maya Lopez was cool and Hawkeye. I'm really interested to see more of her dynamic with Kingpin, hopefully Daredevil. But that's the problem. I'm more excited for the other stuff besides Echo. Again, a show that's not it's gonna have a hard time resonating with me because it's probably not made for me exactly, right? Shows are made sometimes for different audiences. And yeah, it's pretty low on my list. I am still excited to see the criminal side of New York and the criminal aspects of the MCU. I hope it still touches on those things and her connection to Kingpin. What's going on with Kingpin and Daredevil at this time? Ironheart, I really enjoyed Riri Williams and the Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I'm intrigued. The Hood is supposed to be the villain of this film, but it's also being rumored that he's working for Mephisto, and Mephisto might show up in a couple of Phase 5 projects, including, I think, maybe Agatha too, but mainly in Ironheart is like the main villain, which is weird. The Hood having some mystical elements given to him by Mephisto, I believe. So that's really intriguing to me. And I'm really intrigued as there's what's up this Ironheart like Riri Williams like does she look up to Tony? Like I'd like to see some of that maybe. Why does she look up to Tony so much? Because we've had a lot of Tony references, but it'd be cool to see some of the ramifications of like Tony's impact on the wider, broader MCU and how he's impacted Riri Williams. 6, we have What If. I think there's some really cool concepts here. Odin versus the Mandarin. Um, some other stuff. We haven't seen a lot of footage yet. I don't know when this is going to come out. It's supposed to be early 2023, but we'll see. We'll see. Do we get Killmonger back? Do we get some of the characters, Sorcerer Supreme Strange? What is the big multiversal event here? Do we get one? I have a lot of questions about that. So there's a lot more questions than answers in What If. I think that's the point. But yeah, I'm really excited just for some more unique stories with different versions of the characters we know. I think that would be really cool. We'll get some Phase 4 What Ifs, which I think is really cool. But yeah, again, I have it higher because I've seen the product already. I know what to kind of expect, the story structure. I don't think it would deviate much from what we originally got. So I'm excited for What If though, for sure. Number 5, we got X-Men 97. I'm really excited. I gotta watch the original show. I know a lot of people say it's like some of their favorite, not just comic stories of all time, but some of their favorite animated stories of all time. I'm really excited to get the X-Men uh, incorporated into the MCU. So this will be a nice like segue. Do we get these characters maybe in live action, like these versions of the characters? Magneto was going to lead them, I believe. I am really enjoying Magneto's character. I think he's a very fascinating character. And I'm excited to learn more. I'm not a big X-Men guy. I haven't read a lot of comics. A lot of my knowledge comes from the films and watching YouTube videos. So I'm gonna get into the original X-Men show to get ready for X-Men 97. I'm really excited for this show just because of the introduction of the X-Men and the mutants and stuff like that. So that's why this is so high on the list. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the end of the Guardians franchise, trying to compete with, I think, Captain America as the best trilogy in the MCU. And I think it's got a chance if this film knocks it out of the park. We got Ian Poulter, or is it Will Poulter? Ian Poulter's a golfer. Will Poulter. Yeah, is it? Yeah. Now I'm curious. It's Will Poulter, right? Yeah, it's Will Poulter. Um, playing Adam Warlock. We got the High Evolutionary. What's really intriguing about this is like what character's gonna go, who's gonna stay like as a part of the team. This film's gonna have a lot of emotion to it. I think the High Evolutionary's got a chance to be the best villain of the saga, which really of this trilogy, which really intrigues me. Again, it's a James Gunn superhero film. It's not gonna miss. his Superman film might miss, but this won't. So I'm really excited and nervous. Who's gonna go? You feel the weight. You felt the weight in the trailer. And again, he writes really good comedy, so we'll see. Secret Invasion. Again, I'm excited for like the Moon Knight type of element where it's a mystery. We don't know who's a scroll. We got to get some crazy characters that we know being scrolls. We got Amelia Clark in the show. We got Rhodey. This is going to set up Armor Wars. Probably going to set up some stuff we see in New World Order. Maybe with Thunderbolt Ross coming president by the end of this show. Nick Fury. I'm really excited for the Winter Soldier type of vibes in this show and the mystery elements. You could tell it's much more grounded. Ben Mendelsohn, again, back as Talos. I'm really excited for that. I don't love the scrolls and stuff and Captain Marvel, but I'm really excited in a type of show that's going to be more grounded, a little more adultish, you could say, a little more sophisticated. I'm really excited again for that with it being so close to tone and as it seems to with Civil War or with Winter Soldier, I should say. Number 2 is Loki season 2. Again, the stuff with Kane, what's going on with the multiverse. And again, I just want another good Loki story. Loki being my favorite character. I think it's the best MCU show. I think Loki is one of the better MCU characters. Sylvie, again, the big thing though is what's going on with Kane. How does this show continue to catapult us forward towards the Kane dynasty? And how does this connect to Kane's ultimate goal? What's Kane doing? Is Kane going to be involved? How involved? That sort of thing. And then finally, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So right off the bat, my most anticipated project of 2023 for Marvel will be right off the bat. Kane as the main villain is what's really exciting. And MODOK. We get Yellow Jacket back as MODOK, which is really exciting. So we're going to have 2 really, really good villains. I can't wait for the scale of this film, too. We're going to get big battles in the quantum realm. That sounds really, really cool. And to learn more about Kane's master plan and to see where we're going with the Kane dynasty. Does he know things that we don't know? Does he know about He Who Remains? Was he a part of the original multiversal war? Why does he need Scott Lang? The leaks for this film sound absolutely insane. Is this the Kane for the Kane dynasty? I'm just can't wait to see Kane's power in this film. And how does this connect to the stuff we have seen in Phase 4? Getting more questions answered that I think were failed to be answered in Phase 4, which is fine. But overall, this film giving us more answers and just seeing the immense power of Kane. We never saw Thanos have his own film until Infinity War. So this is a very unique thing. And it's not going to be the last Kane we see because what's unique about Kane is he's a time-traveling villain who has multiple variants. This Kane could be ruthless, but this could not be the most ruthless Kane, right? The Kane that we get by the Kane dynasty. So yeah, that's my most anticipated MCU project, and that's for 2023. And that's those are my rankings for anticipation for Marvel projects in 2023. Excuse me there. Okay. One more thing, and then we're gonna wrap up the show. I am losing my voice. It's only about 4 more projects left here to recap. So here we go. This is the Star Wars anticipation list for 2023. And here we go. Let's go. Number 4, we got Bad Batch Season 2. Again, I'm hoping that there's more of a dynamic between the team. We get an arc for Echo. We get an arc for Tech Wrecker. Lot more stuff with Crosshair. I can't wait to see Commander Cody. There's some elements I'm really excited for. I will say a lot less with Hunter and Omega. We kind of got that well established at the first season. I'm not saying have it be absent, but a lot heavier focus on Crosshair, Cody, Rex. I want to see a Rex and Cody arc. What's going on there? Cody may be feeling remorse for what he did to Kenobi. That sort of deal. Gregor and Wolf and Rex teaming up. Maybe even Echo going off with them. We know Echo Base in the original trilogy in Empire Strikes Back. Is that a connection to Echo? That would be really cool to figure out later on. But yeah, more arcs for Echo, Tech, and Wrecker. more heavier focus on Crosshair and Cody is what I'm hopefully looking forward to, and we'll be covering that here on the channel here in January. So yeah, Skeleton Crew coming in new at number 3. Jude Law. This show, the leaks for the show sound really interesting, in exploring a new unexplored region of the galaxy with children that are lost. It's gonna be a Stranger Things type of show in space. I think what could be cool is if what's true with this region, viewing the Force differently and using a lot more magic like the Night Sisters do. Um, I think that could be really cool. It's just learning more about the Force, seeing mystical type of creatures, mythical creatures, maybe them having to deal with that, kind of like what the Stranger Things have to do. Uh, a lot of fantastical type of stuff, I think, with this type of show would work, and even some bounty hunters, seeing some bounty hunters, them having to deal with that, and having these kids have to face uh, terrifying things that are unimaginable for them to grow up and mature. Kind of these kids being almost like innocent and naive about the world, but Jude Law's character who presumably may have seen some stuff, has to show him and guide him, teach them how to protect themselves and understand the dangers of the galaxy. I think that could be really cool. Ahsoka coming in at number 2, man. The show's got a lot. I'm really happy Ahsoka is finally getting her own solo project. Um, this feels like a big turning piece in the Mandalorian universe. Obviously, Thrawn, the introduction of Thrawn, the reemergence of Ezra Bridger, Sabine Wren, Harrison Dula, the Ghost Crew. It feels like a spiritual successor to the Ghost Crew in Star Wars Rebels. But also, again, if the leaks are true, Ahsoka discovering this new region of the galaxy with the magical type of Force users, and Ahsoka taking on this new challenge. And building her relationship with Luke Skywalker, rebuilding her relationship with Anakin and Obi-Wan through the Force Ghost, the world between worlds. What's Ahsoka's view on the Jedi? What's Ahsoka's view on the Force? I think this show is going to continue to challenge that, like we did in Rebels, especially if there's a whole new meaning to how the Force was discovered and how the Force is used in other parts of the galaxy, and how that could be a new threat for this time period. Because we don't know a lot about this time period, and we don't know what happens to Ahsoka. So Ahsoka taking on an outside threat, kind of similarly to what happens in the expanded lore with the Yuuzhan Vaughn. I'm not saying exactly the Yuuzhan Vaughn, but having uh, a type of Force user that comes from an unknown part of the galaxy. And again, it can add depth to even like Exegol and why the Sith were in the unknown regions, why were there Jedi in the unknown regions. Could add depth to all those sorts of things. And make us understand why the Sith knew magic and stuff like that. So I think that would be really interesting for the Ahsoka show. Just added Force lore overall, which I think is something Dave excels with, especially with like the Mortis arc and that sort of thing. So yeah. And obviously her relationship with Anakin and Luke. And then finally, The Mandalorian Season 3. This season's going to be big. The reclamation of Mandalore. I mean, again, this show right here is the most popular thing in Star Wars right now, so I think it's got to be a hit. And I think it most definitely will be the return of Grogu. Hopefully some big battles. Maybe Bo-Katan is an antagonist for a little bit. Maybe the reemergence of Moff Gideon. What's going on there? How was the New Republic dealing with that? I think we're going to get that type of story too. And I think those stories are going to converge into the final reclamation of Mandalore. I think we're going to deal with Din getting himself back into the Mandalorian clan. And I think we're going to get people rallying around Din and rallying around maybe Moff Gideon or some other forces on the planet. I think Din will ultimately become the Mandalore and be able to unite the people. And I think Bo-Katan, and we'll get some popular, maybe even Sabine figures on his council, and we'll see him be the leader and hopefully rebuilding Mandalore. So yeah, that's I think gonna do it for the show, man. Again, I want to thank everybody who had listened to a bunch, any type amount of content that we made here in 2022. Definitely a lot less than 21 because I had university and wasn't able to be home or stream, and Alex was obviously busy. Again, appreciate Alex everything he's done for the channel. Of course, I hope he can continue to do it. That's what I'm hoping. For I wish him the best, of course. And maybe you'll see three of us, maybe a three-way show. That would be cool. So again, we'll be back. I don't know. We'll see when me and Jonah will go live. We'll discuss the first two episodes, of Bad Batch, and some other news that hopefully will come out. Yeah, and we'll talk to him, and it should be a fun first show with him. I'm definitely really excited. Like I said, this show runs the best when it's multiple people talking, not me or just Alex or whoever. So I'm really excited for that, and I'm really excited to start talking about some content again. It's been a while. It's been too long. It's been since the end of Andor. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the year in review stream. I'm really excited for 2023. It's gonna be a great year of content. Hopefully, I can continue to bring content here. I know school will be starting that back up again in the middle of January. So we'll see. But I'm sure we'll figure something out. So as always, may the force be with you, and may you stay burdened with glorious purpose. I will see you in the new year.